This has been such an intense day. Still is. So with that, I would continue the reading of Beyond Human by Eve Harold, How Cutting Edge Science is Extending Our Lives. And sorry if this video is all shaky. Do what we gotta do. Starting at page 26. Sorry if I reread things because I don't always remember where we left off. But there's a risk to the computerization of everything, including our bodies and brains, and that is an unprecedented danger to our privacy and autonomy. I can never say that word. That is because all this information about us, our actions, our habits, and potentially even our thoughts will be digitized, recorded, and stored somewhere. If our smart garments are able to continuously inform our doctor about our vital signs, that information must be stored and could potentially be hacked into. In a market-based economy, it might even be sold to insurance companies or other businesses or to a potential employer. And it may be made freely available to the government if we don't substantially regulate and place limits on who can have access to our personal information. Soon, a huge, minutely detailed body of information about us will exist. And there's no guarantee at present that we will have control over that information. This is one compelling reason why some people may choose to opt out of many of the new technologies to the extent that is possible. Still, accepting multiple monitoring technologies will be the path of least resistance and in some cases may even be unavoidable. Suppose, for example, airport security systems come to rely on required universal implanted identity chip that must be read and cleared before a passenger can board an airplane. Embrace some technologies may be utterly mandatory if one is to live a normal life. Interjection here from a personal experience I just had. Or you can't even get unemployment because your face has been erased and it won't, facial recognition doesn't even work on you, as they thought they were going to take you out and failed, and so they took you out of the system, and or somebody else is out there using your identity. Continuing on, true story, unemployment, can't get it. Even though I lost my job nefariously. All right, continuing. Through converging technologies, we're on a path to eliminating a huge amount of human suffering. But not everyone welcomes this idea. One of the major concerns of bioconservatives is that presumed nearly complete eradication of suffering on both a physical and a mental level. Throughout history, much has been written about the potential of suffering and adversity to build laudable character attributes, including compassion and sympathy for others. The British bioethicist Y.J. Urden notes that even the experience of depression can have a transcendent value when processed by a person who is self-aware and truth-seeking. She writes that our identity is formed by a multitude of experiences or emotions that may cause us pain, such as depression and bereavement. Catholic ethicists in particular tend to believe that there is a redemptive value in suffering, and these thinkers stand in stark contrast to what Urden calls an excessive technological optimism in the part of scientists. There is also noticeable tendency on the part of the scientific community to think of the human experience in reductionist terms as the sum total of chemical and electrical processes of the physical brain, and an attendant expectation that most human suffering can be, ameliorated, what the fuck that means, and furthermore ought to be eliminated. It's hard to differ with such an argument, but it's also unproven that the elimination of diseases and the augmentation of human abilities will necessarily provide the elusive state of happiness that we humans perpetually seek. Science has proven that we invariably assimilate each improvement into our lives, which then becomes a new normal, pushing the boundaries of what constitutes happiness ever outward. It seems unrealistic to assume that even in a world where disease was eradicated and everyone lived forever, life would be free of all adversity, including disappointment, frustration, loneliness, and the craving for meaning. Most of the groundbreaking technologies described in this book are either in human clinical trials, in animal trials, where they have already proved proof of principle, or already exist and simply await commercialization. Governmental regulators and academic and private sector ethical oversight committees are struggling to catch up with the technology and its implication for individuals and society. Because these technologies have tremendous commercial potential, the speed of implementation is bound to occur very quickly in the United States, Europe, and several Asian countries, all competing to secure the first patents and dominate international markets. Regulatory bodies such as the FDA are moving at a snail's pace compared to the rapid development of medical technologies. Humanitarian concerns are putting even more pressure on governments to help make such technologies available to their sick citizens. They have barely begun to consider the issue of human enhancements. The philosopher Nick Bostrom calls attention to the distinction between enhancements that offer only positional advantages, e.g., an increase in height, which are only advantages insofar as others lack them, and enhancements that provide either intrinsic benefits or net positive externalities, such as better immune systems or improvement of cognitive functioning. We ought to promote enhancements of the second kind, but not enhancements that are merely positional. But in a society that currently obsesses about youth and beauty, it seems unlikely that we will limit ourselves to only the second kind of enhancements. While radical new inventions such as artificial organs are now being tested in humans, artificial intelligence in the form of robots that interact with human beings is relatively advanced and is about to become ubiquitous through the industrialized world. In the foreseeable future, we may be sharing our planet with huge numbers of intelligent, self-acting artificial beings whose intelligence, in terms of computational power, exceeds our own. In democratic societies, what rights and responsibilities will these beings have, and what ways will they both resemble and be unlike us? We're rapidly approaching the point where very few, if any, individuals understand the sea of technologies that we find ourselves immersed in. When super smart machines take over most of human labor and dramatically extend lifespans, when super smart machines take over most of human labor and dramatically extend lifespans, mean that people have a surplus of time on their hands, will we become lazy and dependent on the machines we no longer understand? How will we ensure that highly developed AI will serve the need of humanity rather than its own? Some extremists think that we should abandon the development of AI, nanotechnology, and genetics because we will eventually create a future in which human beings are redundant and unnecessary. The neo-Luddites may be able to somehow slow the adoption of innovations, but they can never win in a global society where technology is driven by competition in both the business and military sectors. Those nations that decide to sit out the compelling revolution in CTs will be economically disadvantaged and militarily vulnerable. Bostrom envisions a world in which transhumanism is rapidly becoming a reality. He writes, virtual reality, pre-implementation, genetic diagnosis, pharmaceuticals that improve memory, concentration, wakefulness and mood, performance-enhancing drugs, cosmetic surgery, sex change operations, prosthetics, anti-aging medicine, closer human-computer interfaces. These technologies are already here or can be expected within the next few decades. The combination of these technological capabilities as they mature could profoundly transform the human condition. This was written in 2005, and since then, each of these technologies has become a reality and merely awaits commercialization in order to become the mundane stuff of everyday life. Andrew Sandberg notes that the ability to change and augment our bodies, far from creating armies of identically perfect humanoids, as is frequently depicted in science fiction, is more likely to be exercised in intensely personal ways. New technologies and the freedom to use them as each individual chooses will take self-actualization to unprecedented levels. This movement, rather than imposing oppressive pressures to conform, could call upon society to tolerate more human diversity than we can currently imagine. It all depends not only on us, but on who we become as humanity. 1.0 rapidly climbs the technological ladder that will bring about a new race, a transhuman race. And so that is the end of chapter 1. I'm seeing how long chapter 2 is and whether I just want to start with a completely new video. It's not as long as chapter 1, so I may as well go on and read, start another video and read chapter 2.